Next up, we have the jobs numbers that recently came out for October. It was 638,000 jobs were added in October. Only 580,000 were expected. But the biggest thing here is that the unemployment rate actually fell to 6.9%. And it was supposed to fall from 7.9% to 7.6%. And instead, it fell all the way down to 6.9%. So that's a really significant move there, like 1% in just a month like that. That's some pretty big numbers there. Next up, we have some information in the Bitcoin world. So the Justice Department had actually just seized $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. And what they were doing was an investigation, and this was involved from Silk Road when you had Ross Ulbricht and the whole situation with him and how he had money that was hacked by a hacker, and it was sitting in an account, and somehow the Department of Justice was able to actually take control of those Bitcoins. They didn't say necessarily how they did that, but it was 69,000 Bitcoins at the current time, worth $1 billion. And if you look at it, a hacker stole this from Ross in 2012 and 2013. And this is the fourth largest Bitcoin balance on a Bitcoin wallet right now. And now the Department of Justice has it. And overall, what usually happens here if the FBI or the Department of Justice or anybody in the government actually takes control of those assets, they usually auction them off. And that's what we've seen in the past with Bitcoin. Usually that would have an adverse effect on the price of Bitcoin because all of a sudden there's another $1 billion worth of Bitcoin that's coming onto the marketplace that was kind of frozen before that. But the thing here is that Bitcoin has continued to go up even after this news. It's been on a tear lately. For the year, it's actually up 90.3%. You know, gold is up about 23.6%, looking at another kind of a hard asset there versus Bitcoin, a digital asset. But I just thought that was a lot of interesting news there. A lot of Bitcoin coming on the market, but it doesn't seem to be tampering the demand for the digital currency. Next up, we have China news, where they came out with their new 5-year plan. So Xi Jinping and the communist government there ended up making this kind of top-down economy where they basically make a 5-year plan and they follow the policies in that, and it tells them what directions they should put funding and what they should do, what they should focus on. So when they released this, there was a couple main things here that I just wanted to discuss. One was that they discussed they will resolutely guard against and contain outside interference in Hong Kong and Taiwan. So they don't like that other countries are meddling into the internal affairs of their country, even though technically Taiwan should be considered its own country. They also said, and this is another big one, quote, China will, quote, comprehensively strengthen military training and preparation for war. So that's not a good thing to hear when you hear the world's second largest economy and the other superpower in the world is preparing for war. That's usually not a good sign. On top of this, in dealing with Hong Kong specifically, they also have been doing more of this purge of Hong Kong, where now that the protests have faded with COVID-19 and everything going on, and it's not in the mainstream news anymore as much, you have 7 opposition figures recently arrested in Hong Kong. This crackdown continues. 3 of these individuals were actually politicians, and they were charged with some charge that ends up giving them potentially of a 1-year jail sentence. So here you just continue to see anybody that was part of the protests or the opposition or Hong Kong or believes in Hong Kong as a separate system is being, silently removed. And it's just happening slowly over time here. And with the new policies where they're going to really try and prevent any outside intervention, Britain didn't really do anything here when their treaty was that Hong Kong would remain independent basically for 50 years. It was supposed to be like the one country, two systems kind of policy, and we're not seeing that take place. Britain didn't really do anything. The United States didn't really do anything. Did anybody else in any of the Asian countries make any actions to help out Hong Kong? Not significantly enough. And I don't know if that can continue at all now with their new crackdown here. Next up, we have General Motors. So this is a company that has a lot of ups and downs over the years. But we've seen in the previous videos that a lot of these car companies are doing really well right now, right? They're making a lot of money, a lot of profits. GM is no exception to that. they earned $4 billion in profit in the third quarter. So the net income was actually up 74% from the third quarter of 2019. Really significant there as well. Now, pre-tax earnings were $2.83 a share, and the adjusted before tax was the profit was $5.3 billion. But it was $4 billion once you do all the adjustments and everything. The margin, though, was a very important thing, which was 15% this time. So if you're looking at it, that's really, maybe in like another industry, it's not that great, but in the automotive industry, that's significantly high margin right there. Next up, we also had good quarters from several companies that are kind of the stay-at-home companies because of the pandemic. So if you look at Peloton, you look at Papa John's, Take-Two Interactive, and Roku, they all had great quarters. They all had revenue increases. And if you look at Peloton, they have a backlog of orders for about a month right now just because so many people are trying to order in particular, the new fitness bike. So they earned 20 cents a share instead of the expected 11 cents a share. So Peloton is still firing on all cylinders right now. And then another one here that you had doing well because of the pandemic was Clorox. Clorox said profit doubled to $415 million in the quarter. Sales were up 27%. So until every virus has gone out of the world, Clorox is still going to perform. They're going to perform well here. Something is rotten in the state of Denmark. And it turns out what it is a coronavirus strain that has mutated in the mink population in Denmark. So Denmark actually has this kind of farming industry around mink, which is, they're prized for their fur. It's a very beautiful fur and it's used to make fur coats. And they have a giant farming industry in Denmark for that. The problem is now a new coronavirus strain was found, so they want to stop this. They want to eliminate it because this could mean that all these vaccines that are coming out could be made obsolete because of this new strain if it continues to mutate, or even that the vaccine wouldn't be good against this particular strain. So the government has actually announced they could potentially cull 17 million animals. Have to eliminate all of those animals to try and stop this virus and stop mutations in it. That's pretty crazy right there. Another thing with the virus is that Boris Johnson announced London is going back into a lockdown. London and all of England and the UK, United Kingdom, if I can get it right here, they are doing a nationwide lockdown now because of the rising coronavirus cases. In the US right now, we're over 100,000 daily cases that was recently reported. But that's enough of that bad news. Let's look at Spotify. So Spotify is a streaming company, streaming music. They have been doing very well this year. The stock is up 84.62%. But there's some other stuff here that I wanted to talk about in particular with Spotify. They had recently done this deal with the Joe Rogan podcast. So they were bringing Joe Rogan to their platform, and they paid over $100 million to do so. Then there was this controversy about the type of guests that Joe Rogan had on, the stuff that they would discuss, and it could offend some people, and people were trying to get him removed. Well, for Spotify, actually, this purchase has been doing very well. If you look at overall how much they have been doing on podcasting, this is the new thing for Spotify. They spent $500 million in the last 2 years acquiring podcast companies. One of the other ones was Gimlet Media. They had the Joe Rogan one here. Now, since Joe Rogan was purchased in September, they said that it's been performing well above their expectations. The stock is up 50% since the Joe Rogan purchase. Spotify now has 144 million users or million subscribers, and they're looking to have about 154 million by the end of the year. Next up, we're going to talk about the Lebanese economy. So Lebanon recently had that whole giant event. It's a harrowing ordeal that people went through there, where there was a massive explosion in the center of Beirut, which is the capital city there. And they had a lot of political fallout from that. And on top of that, their economy is really struggling. Lebanon's also known they have a very good nightlife there, and a lot of people are out of work because you can't go to restaurants or clubs or bars. And their economy is really hurting. So they're projected to contract 25% this year for the overall economy. That's really significant there. The value of the Lebanese pound, their currency, lost 80% of its value against the US dollar, which is the world reserve currency. Many people now are fleeing Lebanon. A lot of people had homes or they had dual nationality and they were going to the other place where they had nationality, and some people are just fleeing to get out of the country and the bad economic conditions. Now it's been going on for a while now, and the middle class there is getting really beat up and destroyed pretty much. You even have some people piling into boats to cross into Cyprus. So they said that there was actually 30 migrant boats that departed from Cyprus or to Cyprus from Lebanon between July and October. So you have a lot of people actually going as refugees. And when these boats, sometimes they are intercepted, they find out that the number one place that the people are coming from is Syria, the war-torn Syria, but a lot of these other ones were coming from Lebanon. So that's pretty crazy that, what had been going all right for them is kind of falling apart there, and things are getting really bad. Something to keep in mind. Next up, on some good news here, we have the S&P 500 and the election rally. So once again, I said before, the uncertainty, it's over after the election. You kind of know what things are and what to deal with and what you're going to have to do. So this is actually the best week since April 2020. The S&P 500 was up 7%. Pretty significant there. And also one other thing that I noticed, the S&P and the NASDAQ, they appear to be trending to go right above their 65-day moving average. So that's another significant kind of tool that you can use to look at a bullish trend on that. So we'll end it on the good news for the week there. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.